Imagine you're in a heated argument, and the other person is raising their voice, trying to push your buttons. Your heart starts racing, your mind fills with comebacks, and you feel that strong urge to fire back. But then, you pause. You take a deep breath. You say nothing. The room shifts. The other person, expecting a reaction, is suddenly left with their own anger echoing back at them. In that moment, you realize something powerful. Silence is not weakness. It's control. Every day we face situations that test our emotions. A rude comment from a stranger, a frustrating email from a coworker, a disagreement with a loved one. How we react in these moments can shape the course of our relationships, our reputation, and even our peace of mind. Most people act on impulse, letting emotions dictate their words and actions. But what if, instead of reacting immediately, you chose to pause? That one decision alone could prevent unnecessary conflicts, protect your energy, and keep you in control of the situation rather than being controlled by it. The Stoics, some of the greatest thinkers in history, understood this well. They believed that emotions, while natural, should not govern our decisions. To them, true strength came from mastering oneself, from responding with wisdom rather than reacting with emotion. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This philosophy teaches us that external events don't disturb us. It's our reaction to them that does. If you can control your response, you can control how situations affect you. And when you have control over yourself, you have an incredible advantage in life. The ability to not react impulsively is a rare skill. It sets you apart in personal relationships, allowing you to avoid unnecessary arguments. It helps in professional settings, where staying composed under pressure earns you respect. More importantly, it gives you inner peace. Because when you are no longer at the mercy of every emotion or provocation, you become unshakable. This isn't about suppressing feelings, but about choosing when and how to express them in a way that serves you rather than harms you. In the end, true power lies in restraint. Reacting is easy. It's automatic, emotional, and often regrettable. But choosing not to react, to take a step back and respond with thoughtfulness, is a mark of true strength. When you master this, you don't just gain control over yourself. You gain control over the world around you. When you start to notice the power of not reacting, the next question becomes, why do we react in the first place? It often feels automatic, like a reflex we can't control. Someone insults us and we snap back. We receive bad news and panic sets in. It happens so fast that we don't even think about it. That's because our reactions are deeply connected to our emotions, and emotions are tied to the way our brain is wired. At its core, reacting is a survival mechanism. Our ancestors lived in a world where danger was everywhere. A sudden rustle in the bushes could mean a predator was nearby, and hesitation could cost them their life. The brain developed a fight-or-flight response to deal with immediate threats, either attack or escape. While this was useful in the wild, in modern life, this instinct often works against us. Today, the threats we face aren't life-threatening. A rude comment, a traffic jam, or a disagreement with a coworker isn't a tiger lurking in the shadows, yet our body still reacts as if it is. This is why our heart races, our breath shortens, and we feel the need to lash out or defend ourselves. But reacting based purely on emotion can lead to choices we later regret. This is where the difference between reacting and responding becomes important. Reacting is instant and emotional. It happens without thinking. Responding, on the other hand, requires a moment of pause, a space between emotion and action. It allows you to assess the situation, process your emotions, and then choose the best course of action. Imagine someone cutting you off in traffic. The instinctual reaction might be to honk aggressively, yell, or tailgate them in frustration. But what does that accomplish? The other driver likely won't change their behavior, and now you've elevated your own stress levels over something you can't control. A response, however, might be as simple as taking a deep breath and letting it go, recognizing that your peace is more valuable than a moment of frustration. The truth is, we are wired to react, but we are also capable of overriding that instinct. The brain has an area called the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and decision-making. While our emotional brain pushes us to react instantly, the prefrontal cortex allows us to slow down and choose a response. The more we practice this, the stronger that ability becomes. The problem is that most people never develop this skill because reacting feels natural. But just because something is natural doesn't mean it's beneficial. Acting on impulse might feel good in the moment, but it often comes with consequences. A heated argument with a loved one can lead to words that can't be taken back. A rash decision in anger can damage trust. Even small moments of overreaction, like stressing over things outside our control, add up over time, leading to unnecessary anxiety and regret. In contrast, those who master their reactions gain an incredible advantage. They don't allow fleeting emotions to dictate their actions, and as a result, they make better decisions, experience less stress, and maintain stronger relationships. Learning to respond instead of react isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about giving yourself time to process them. When you understand that not every situation requires an immediate emotional reaction, you start to see how much power you actually have. You become more patient, more thoughtful, and ultimately, more in control of your life. When you start to see the cost of reacting impulsively, the next step is learning how to master your emotions. This is where Stoicism becomes incredibly useful. The ancient Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, believed that true strength comes from within, not from controlling external events, but from mastering our own minds. They understood something that many people struggle with. Emotions are natural, but acting on them without thought is a choice. Instead of letting feelings take over, the Stoics taught the importance of stepping back, observing emotions, and responding with reason rather than impulse. One of the core ideas in Stoicism is that we should focus only on what is within our control. This might seem simple, but most of our suffering comes from trying to control things that we can't. People's opinions, unexpected events, or the way others treat us. None of these are fully in our hands. What is in our hands, however, is how we respond. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most famous Stoics, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He understood that reacting emotionally to every situation is like being a puppet, constantly pulled by whatever happens around us. But when you learn to master your reactions, you take back control. Stoicism places great emphasis on rationality, on using logic to override emotional impulses. Emotions are not the enemy. but letting them dictate your actions can lead to poor decisions. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, put it simply, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of the time our reactions aren't based on what's actually happening, but on the story we tell ourselves about it. Someone makes a rude comment, and suddenly we assume they're against us. We face a setback, and we convince ourselves that everything is falling apart. The Stoics encourage a different approach, to step back, look at the situation as an outsider, and ask, is this worth my peace? Is this within my control? More often than not, the answer reveals that reacting emotionally only makes things worse. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most respected Stoic philosophers, had a powerful lesson about reactions. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This means that no matter what happens, whether someone insults you, disappoints you, or angers you, you still have the power to choose how you respond. If you react without thinking, you give your power away. But if you pause, reflect, and respond with wisdom, you stay in control of yourself. One of the most valuable practices in Stoicism is learning to see emotions as passing clouds rather than permanent truths. Just because you feel anger, frustration, or sadness doesn't mean you have to act on it. Emotions come and go, but your ability to stay calm and rational is what determines your strength. This is why the Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, imagining worst-case scenarios ahead of time. By preparing their minds for challenges before they happened, they built the habit of responding wisely instead of reacting emotionally. When you start applying Stoic principles to your life, you'll notice a shift. Situations that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. You won't waste energy fighting battles that don't matter. You'll develop a calmness that others admire and a level of control that keeps you grounded even in chaos. The real power of Stoicism isn't in suppressing emotions, but in mastering them, allowing yourself to feel, but never letting feelings take the wheel. This is what separates those who are controlled by life from those who truly take control of it. When you learn to master your emotions and stop reacting impulsively, life begins to feel more balanced. But what happens when you don't? The consequences of overreacting can be severe, affecting not only your peace of mind, but also your relationships, reputation, and overall well-being. Throughout history, countless people have made choices in the heat of the moment that they later regretted. A single, angry outburst, a harsh message sent without thinking, or a rash decision fueled by frustration can cause damage that is difficult to undo. In contrast, those who stay calm and composed tend to navigate life's challenges more smoothly, avoiding unnecessary conflict and stress. One of the most damaging effects of overreacting is how it impacts relationships. Whether it's with family, friends, colleagues, or strangers, emotional impulsiveness can create deep wounds. A moment of uncontrolled anger can turn a small disagreement into a long-term rift. Words spoken in frustration can break trust that took years to build. In professional settings, an emotional reaction can make someone appear unprofessional or difficult to work with, damaging career opportunities. Many people realize too late that an emotional outburst wasn't worth the fallout. The ability to stay composed, even in difficult situations, strengthens relationships and builds respect, while reacting impulsively does the opposite. Beyond relationships, overreacting takes a toll on mental and emotional health. Constantly getting caught up in frustration, anger, or anxiety drains energy and increases stress. The mind stays stuck in overdrive, replaying past situations or worrying about future ones. Over time, this emotional roller coaster leads to exhaustion, making it harder to focus, stay productive, or even enjoy life's simple moments. Those who react emotionally to every small inconvenience find themselves in a constant state of tension, while those who learn to pause and respond thoughtfully experience a much greater sense of inner peace. Perhaps one of the biggest consequences of overreacting is that it gives away personal power. Every time someone lets an external situation dictate their emotions, they become a puppet to their surroundings. If a rude comment makes them angry, that person now controls their mood. If a minor inconvenience ruins their day, they've given control of their happiness to something outside of themselves. This is why the Stoics emphasized emotional control, not to suppress feelings, but to ensure that nothing external has power over them. The true loss isn't just the moment of overreaction, it's the long-term habit of letting outside forces determine one's state of mind. The good news is that overreacting is a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed. By recognizing the cost of emotional impulsiveness, it becomes easier to pause before reacting. The more someone practices restraint, the more natural it becomes. Instead of regretting words spoken in anger or decisions made in frustration, they learn to respond with clarity and wisdom. This shift doesn't just improve personal well-being. It also transforms relationships, strengthens character, and creates a sense of control that leads to a more fulfilling life. When a person masters their emotions and stops reacting impulsively, they not only prevent unnecessary problems, but also gain something far more valuable: control over their own life. Staying composed in challenging situations creates a sense of inner stability that affects everything from decision-making to relationships. It reduces stress, improves clarity, and allows for better choices. Instead of being controlled by emotions, they learn to guide their emotions, ensuring that every action is intentional rather than impulsive. When someone remains calm under pressure, they think more clearly, analyze situations objectively, and make decisions that serve them in the long run. This ability transforms not only personal well-being, but also the way others perceive and respond to them. People naturally respect those who stay composed. In moments of crisis or conflict, the person who remains calm stands out. While others panic, argue, or lose control, the composed individual exudes strength and wisdom. This is why leaders, whether in business, politics, or personal life, are often the ones who can maintain their poise when tensions rise. Their ability to stay grounded earns them the trust and respect of those around them. A person who does not react emotionally cannot be easily manipulated, intimidated, or provoked, which makes them appear unshakable. Over time, this quality builds authority, as people are naturally drawn to those who can remain steady in any situation. Beyond respect and authority, there is also a strategic advantage in non-reaction. When someone refuses to react impulsively, they gain control over any interaction. In conflicts, silence can be more powerful than words, allowing the other person's emotions to settle while also showing strength. In negotiations, patience forces the other side to reveal more while maintaining a position of power. In personal relationships, responding with understanding rather than anger often leads to better outcomes. Many people assume that reacting quickly means taking control, but in reality, restraint is far more effective. A person who remains calm can observe, think, and choose their response wisely, ensuring that every action benefits them rather than working against them. The long-term impact of practicing composure is profound. Over time, emotional restraint becomes second nature, leading to a life with fewer regrets, less stress, and greater inner peace. Instead of constantly feeling controlled by emotions or external situations, a person gains the ability to navigate life with clarity and purpose. Challenges no longer feel overwhelming because they no longer trigger immediate emotional responses. People who develop this skill find that they experience fewer conflicts, make better decisions, and enjoy healthier relationships. They gain a sense of stability that allows them to face life's ups and downs with confidence rather than fear. True power does not come from reacting to everything that happens. It comes from knowing when to respond, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. When a person stops reacting to every little thing, they free themselves from unnecessary stress and gain the ability to shape their life on their own terms. The ability to remain calm in any situation is not just a skill. It is a form of mastery that leads to a life of wisdom, strength, and true freedom. Mastering the art of not reacting is not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be unaffected by life's challenges. It's about training the mind to pause, reflect, and respond with wisdom rather than impulse. The Stoics understood that emotions are natural, but they also knew that being ruled by them leads to unnecessary suffering. To gain control over reactions, they developed practical techniques that help create mental distance from emotional triggers. These techniques, when practiced consistently, cultivate inner strength and emotional resilience, allowing a person to navigate life with greater clarity and peace. One of the most powerful habits is simply pausing before responding. When faced with a challenging situation, taking even a brief moment to reflect can change everything. Most emotional reactions happen instantly, driven by the heat of the moment. But if a person learns to insert a pause before they react, they give themselves the opportunity to choose their response. This small shift creates space for rational thinking to override impulsive emotions. Instead of saying something in anger or making a rash decision, they can take a breath, step back, and assess the situation with a calm mind. This single habit alone can prevent countless conflicts, misunderstandings, and regrets. Another technique the Stoics practiced was called the view from above. This involves mentally stepping outside of a situation and looking at it from a broader perspective. When caught in an emotionally charged moment, problems often feel overwhelming and urgent. But when viewed from a higher perspective, most issues lose their intensity. Imagine zooming out and seeing oneself from a distance, as if looking at life from the perspective of history or the universe. Will this situation matter in a year, 5 years, a lifetime? More often than not, what seems significant in the moment is actually small in the grand scheme of things. By adopting this detached perspective, emotional reactions become less intense, allowing for more rational and thoughtful responses. The Stoics also believed in preparing for difficulties before they happen. This practice, known as premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils, involves imagining potential hardships in advance. Instead of being caught off guard by challenges, a person mentally prepares for them. This does not mean expecting the worst, but rather acknowledging that life is unpredictable and setbacks will occur. By thinking through possible obstacles ahead of time, emotions become less overwhelming when difficulties arise. Instead of reacting in panic, one can face challenges with composure, having already prepared their mind to handle them. Journaling and self-reflection were also key Stoic practices. Writing down thoughts and emotions helps bring clarity and self-awareness. When emotions run high, putting them into words forces a person to slow down and examine their feelings more objectively. By regularly reflecting on how they reacted to different situations, they can identify patterns and improve their emotional control over time. A journal becomes a personal tool for growth, allowing a person to learn from their experiences and refine their ability to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. Another mental exercise is negative visualization, consciously imagining difficult or stressful scenarios and mentally practicing how to stay calm in them. This is like training the mind to remain steady under pressure before it even encounters real-life challenges. Athletes and performers that use this technique to prepare for high-pressure situations, and it works just as effectively in daily life. By mentally rehearsing patience, composure, and logical thinking in stressful situations, the brain becomes wired to respond with control instead of reactivity when similar situations arise in reality. Internal dialogue plays a major role in emotional reactions. The way a person talks to themselves in their mind influences how they feel and respond. If they constantly reinforce negative or dramatic narratives, their emotions will follow. However, if they learn to control their internal dialogue and reframe situations logically, they can prevent emotional outbursts. Instead of saying, "This is unfair and I can't handle it," they can shift their thoughts to, "This is challenging, but I have handled difficulties before, and I will get through this too." Changing the way the mind processes events can drastically alter emotional responses, making calmness the default reaction rather than frustration. Finally, practicing voluntary discomfort helps build resilience against emotional triggers. The Stoics believed that exposing oneself to small, controlled difficulties, such as fasting, taking cold showers, or spending time without modern comforts, trains the mind to be less reactive when faced with real adversity. By regularly stepping outside of comfort zones, a person learns that discomfort is not something to fear or react to with frustration. Instead, they develop endurance, patience, and the ability to remain calm even when life does not go as planned. These Stoic techniques are not about suppressing emotions, but rather about understanding and managing them in a way that leads to greater strength and peace. With practice, they allow a person to become less reactive, more composed, and ultimately more in control of their own mind and actions. Instead of being at the mercy of every emotional impulse, they gain the power to shape their responses, and in doing so, shape their life. Mastering the ability to not react impulsively is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. Throughout history, the greatest thinkers and leaders have understood that true strength does not come from dominance or aggression, but from self-control. The Stoics believed that the way a person responds to external events defines their inner peace and freedom. By choosing not to react emotionally, they take control of their own mind, rather than letting outside forces dictate their feelings and actions. This shift in perspective changes everything. It reduces unnecessary stress, strengthens relationships, and allows for clearer thinking in difficult situations. The lessons from Stoicism teach that emotions are natural, but being controlled by them leads to suffering. The difference between reacting and responding determines the outcome of nearly every situation in life. A moment of anger can damage a relationship. A rash decision can lead to regret. But a moment of patience, a pause before speaking, can change the course of an entire conversation or event. Choosing composure over impulsiveness is not about suppressing emotions. It is about mastering them. True freedom comes when a person realizes they are not obligated to react to everything that happens around them. External situations, people's opinions, and unexpected challenges will always exist, but they do not have to dictate one's inner state. When a person stops reacting mindlessly, they gain a sense of control that few people ever achieve. They become unshakable, not because they do not feel emotions, but because they have learned to manage them with wisdom. This is the essence of Stoicism, not being indifferent to life, but engaging with it in a way that is rational, thoughtful, and composed. To truly understand the power of not reacting, try it as an experiment. For just one day, practice observing situations without immediately responding. When someone says something upsetting, pause before replying. When a problem arises, take a deep breath before taking action. Notice how much clarity and peace come from this simple practice. Pay attention to how people respond differently when met with calmness instead of emotional outbursts. Even in just a short time, it becomes clear that those who do not react impulsively hold the real power in any situation. This is the challenge. Commit to one day of intentional non-reaction. Observe everything, but do not let emotions take over. By the end of the day, the effects undeniable.